The viewing screens flickered to life across the Grand Assembly Hall, displaying Earth's application for the third time that morning. Rachel Davis sat alone at the designated petitioner's platform, her hands folded calmly despite the dismissive murmurs echoing through the chamber. Around her, representatives from 7 dominant species occupied elevated seats arranged in a semicircle, their various forms casting strange shadows under the artificial lighting. High Chancellor Vorth of the Draknir delegation leaned forward, his scaled features twisting into what might have been amusement. His species had conquered 40 systems through military might, and he clearly found humanity's presence laughable. "Ambassador Davis," he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space, "we have reviewed your species' credentials. I must confess, we are puzzled by your confidence in seeking membership." Rachel kept her expression neutral. She had prepared for this moment through months of diplomatic training, studying every known species in the Concordat. None of that preparation had quite captured the overwhelming sense of being judged by beings who viewed humans as little more than curious primitives. "The Concordat values strength and capability," Rachel responded evenly. "Humanity offers both." A chittering sound erupted from the Tesh section. Ambassador Quillix, an insectoid being whose compound eyes reflected the chamber lights like tiny mirrors, gestured with one of his 4 arms toward a holographic display. "Your species has existed in your current form for approximately 200,000 of your years," Quillix said, his translator rendering his clicks into flat, emotionless words. "We Tesh have maintained unbroken civilization for 4 million years. Your entire evolutionary history is less than a footnote in our academic records." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Vorlani representative, an entity of pure energy contained within a crystalline matrix, pulsed with colors that Rachel's briefing materials had identified as condescension. "Your lifespans are embarrassingly brief," the Vorlani added. 70 to 80 of your years at most. How can you claim to offer wisdom or stability when your individuals barely live long enough to understand the galaxy? Rachel had expected this line of criticism. She pulled up a counter display showing human achievements across multiple fields. "We may have shorter lifespans individually, but we build upon the knowledge of previous generations. Our technology has advanced from basic tools to interstellar travel in less than 10,000 years. We adapt quickly to new challenges." Adaptation born from desperation, not strength. This came from Commander Bront of the Gorath, beings who stood 3 times human height and possessed bodies of living silicon. "Your planet is a death world by any reasonable standard. Extreme temperatures, violent weather, dangerous fauna, frequent geological upheaval. You did not choose adaptation. You were forced into it by circumstance." "And yet we survived," Rachel countered. "We thrived." High Chancellor Vorth made a sound like grinding stones. The translator identified it as laughter. "Survived? Let us examine your natural capabilities. You have no armor plating, no venom, no natural weapons beyond primitive teeth and nails. Your senses are limited to a narrow spectrum of light and sound. You cannot breathe underwater, tolerate vacuum, or regenerate lost limbs. You are, by any objective measure, among the most vulnerable species we have encountered." The Selkie ambassador, whose aquatic form floated in a specialized tank, rippled her tentacles in a gesture Rachel recognized as agreement. "We Selkie possess telepathic abilities that allow instant communication across vast distances. We perceive thoughts and emotions directly. Your species communicates through crude vocalizations and written symbols. How can you participate meaningfully in galactic affairs when you cannot even share thoughts efficiently?" Rachel felt her frustration building, but forced herself to remain calm. She switched her display to show human cultural and artistic achievements, hopping to demonstrate value beyond pure physical capability. "Humanity offers creativity and problem-solving abilities that complement existing Concordat strengths. Our emotional intelligence allows us to navigate complex social situations. Our persistence in the face of obstacles has driven innovations that benefited our entire species. The Luminar Representative, a being of living crystal whose body refracted light into geometric patterns, emitted a high-pitched tone that the translator rendered as dismissive laughter. Emotional intelligence, the Luminar repeated, as if tasting the words. You claim feelings as an asset. We Luminar process information through pure mathematical logic. Our decisions are based on calculated probabilities and proven theorems. You suggest that irrational emotional responses somehow enhance decision-making. Emotions are not irrational, Rachel argued. They are data points that help us evaluate situations from multiple perspectives. They drive us to protect the vulnerable, to explore the unknown, to persist when logic might suggest surrender. More laughter echoed through the chamber. The Averick delegation, four-armed hunters whose civilization valued speed and precision above all else, chittered amongst themselves before their spokesperson addressed the assembly. Persistence through emotional attachment is merely another word for stubborn refusal to accept defeat, the Averick said. It wastes resources and time. Efficient species know when to abandon failed approaches. Vorth raised one clawed hand, silencing the various conversations. I believe we have heard sufficient arguments. Ambassador Davis, your species possesses no unique physical advantages, no exceptional sensory capabilities, no advanced natural abilities. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Your lifespans are brief. Your greatest claimed strength is the ability to feel emotions strongly and refuse to quit even when reason demands it. He looked around at the other council members. Does anyone see value in adding such a species to our concordat? Silence fell across the chamber. Rachel felt the weight of that silence crushing down on her hopes. She had come to this meeting representing not just Earth's government, but the dreams of billions who saw joining the galactic community as humanity's destiny. Very well, Vorth announced. The Council votes on Earth's application for membership. The vote proceeded quickly. Each species representative signaled their decision through their respective methods. Crystals dimmed, energy fields pulsed, claws struck platforms. Not a single affirmative vote appeared on the tally board. The application is rejected unanimously, Vorth declared. He turned his attention back to Rachel, and she thought she detected something almost like pity in his expression. However, we are not entirely without mercy. We offer humanity protectorate status. You may exist under concordat protection as a developing civilization. We will ensure no hostile forces threaten your system. In return, you will provide whatever resources or labor we require. Rachel stood slowly, gathering her materials with deliberate care. When she finally spoke, her voice carried clearly through the silent chamber. Humanity respectfully declines your generous offer, High Chancellor. We will make our own way among the stars. Foolish pride, the Vorlani observed. Without our protection, your species will likely extinct itself within a few galactic cycles. Rachel allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps, or perhaps you will come to regret underestimating us. History has shown that those who survive through adaptation rather than natural advantage often prove more resilient than expected. She turned and walked toward the chamber exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind her, the assembly erupted in renewed laughter at her parting words. The sound followed her all the way to the docking bay where her shuttle waited. As Earth's first ambassador to the Galactic Concordat, Rachel had just experienced humanity's greatest diplomatic failure. She had no way of knowing that within 48 hours, those same beings who mocked her species would be desperately hoping she had not yet left the system. Emergency klaxons shattered the quiet aboard Rachel's shuttle 2 days after her departure from the Grand Assembly Hall. She jerked awake from uneasy sleep, her mind immediately clearing as training took over. The pilot, Lieutenant Owen Gray, was already bringing up communication channels with hands that moved too fast for comfort. "Ambassador, you need to see this," Owen said without looking back from the controls. "Every frequency is screaming." Rachel unstrapped herself and moved to the co-pilot station, her eyes widening as she processed the flood of broadcasts. Distress signals, evacuation orders, scientific alerts, and military warnings all competed for bandwidth across the galactic network. Through the chaos, one message repeated on the official Concordat emergency channel. A spatial anomaly had appeared 17 light-years from the Grand Assembly Hall. Initial reports called it a cascade rift, a theoretical phenomenon that supposedly could not exist in real space. Those same reports were now documenting how it consumed everything in its path. "Pull up visual feeds," Rachel ordered. Owen complied, and the main screen filled with images from various observation posts. The rift appeared as a wound in space itself, a spreading darkness that seemed to erase reality rather than simply destroy it. Stations, ships, even chunks of planets disappeared into that void without explosion or debris. They simply ceased to exist. "How fast is it expanding?" Rachel asked, her voice steady despite the ice forming in her stomach. "Current calculations put it at roughly 3 light-years per standard day," Owen read from incoming data. "It consumed the Tertian colony 7 hours ago. Population estimate was 4 billion Gorath." Rachel closed her eyes briefly. 4 billion lives gone in moments. She opened them again and focused on the tactical displays showing Concordat response efforts. The Gorath had responded first, naturally. Their civilization valued direct action and overwhelming force. Massive construction ships had deployed quantum stabilizers around the rift's periphery, attempting to create a containment field using technology powerful enough to anchor small moons. Rachel watched recorded footage of those stabilizers activating, their energy output visible as brilliant pulses across multiple spectrums. The rift had consumed them within minutes. The construction ships tried to retreat but moved too slowly. They vanished into the darkness along with their stabilizers. "The Tesh deployed computational resources next," Owen narrated, pulling up another set of reports. "They built predictive models to forecast the rift's behavior. According to this, they used their 3 largest quantum computing networks." "What did they learn?" Rachel asked. "That the rift operates on principles beyond their mathematical frameworks. Their models predict nothing useful. Every simulation produces different results." Rachel scrolled through more reports, watching the Concordat's best minds throw their various capabilities against an enemy that refused to follow any known rules. The Vorlani had attempted to interact with the rift using their energy manipulation abilities. The rift had not responded. The Selkie tried telepathic probing, thinking perhaps the phenomenon possessed some form of consciousness. They reported touching something vast and incomprehensible before withdrawing in terror. The Draknir military had established defensive perimeters around threatened systems, deploying their formidable fleet in formations designed to repel any invasion. Against an enemy that existed beyond conventional space, their weapons fired uselessly into the void. "Current casualty estimates," Rachel asked quietly. Owen hesitated. "Official count is 11 billion across 3 systems. Projections suggest that number will increase exponentially as the rift reaches more populated areas." Rachel studied the tactical displays with growing horror. The rift was not slowing. If anything, recent measurements suggested it was accelerating. Various species were evacuating ahead of its path, but many civilizations had grown complacent after millions of years of peace and prosperity. Their evacuation infrastructure was inadequate for this scale of disaster. She pulled up a trajectory map. The rift's current path would take it through another dozen inhabited systems before reaching the Grand Assembly Hall itself. The station housed not just the council chambers but an entire city of diplomatic staff, researchers, and support personnel from hundreds of species. Population estimates put it at over 50 million. The Luminar are calculating survival probabilities, Owen said, reading from a new transmission. They project complete evacuation of threatened systems is impossible given current timelines. They recommend abandoning outer colonies to save core worlds. Rachel felt anger cut through her shock, abandoning billions to save billions. The cold mathematics of survival, calculated by beings who prided themselves on pure logic. Her communicator chimed with an incoming personal message. She activated it and saw Quillix, the Tesh researcher who had spoken during her hearing. His compound eyes seemed dimmer than she remembered. "Ambassador Davis," he began without preamble, "I am contacting you in an unofficial capacity. The Council is aware I am doing this. They have not forbidden it, which tells me they are more desperate than they will admit publicly." "What do you need, Quillix?" "Your species has survived on what you call a death world for your entire existence. You have faced countless extinction events and adapted to each one. Our research teams have studied human history and found consistent patterns of survival through unconventional problem-solving." Rachel understood where this was going. "You want human help." "We are dying, Ambassador. 11 billion so far. Potentially hundreds of billions before this is contained, if it can be contained at all. The Council's pride is strong, but fear is stronger." Quillix paused, his translator struggling to convey what might have been emotion. "High Chancellor Vorth has authorized me to extend an invitation. You may return to the Grand Assembly Hall to observe our crisis response efforts, to learn from your betters," as he phrased it. Rachel smiled without humor. Even in desperation, the Council could not bring itself to directly ask for help. They had to frame it as offering her an educational opportunity. "Tell the High Chancellor I accept his generous invitation," she said, "and tell him that I will be bringing a team of human specialists." Quillix's antennae twitched. He did not authorize additional human presence. "Then he can reject our assistance and continue failing on his own. My choice, Quillix. A team of specialists, or I return to Earth and humanity mourns the galactic catastrophe from a safe distance." The Tesh researcher was quiet for several seconds. "I will relay your conditions. I suspect he will accept." "How long until the rift reaches the Grand Assembly Hall?" "Current projections give us 6 standard days, perhaps less if acceleration continues." 6 days to solve a problem that had already defeated the galaxy's greatest civilizations. Rachel looked at Owen, who had been listening to the conversation with growing alarm. "Set course back to the Grand Assembly Hall," she ordered. "Maximum speed." "You really think humans can solve this?" Owen asked. "I think we have 6 days to try," Rachel replied. "And I think the Council is about to learn that the qualities they mocked might be exactly what they need." She opened a priority channel to Earth, composing a message that would reach the government within hours. She needed scientists who thought differently, who approached problems from angles that pure logic might miss. She needed people who had survived impossible situations through stubbornness, creativity, and the refusal to accept defeat. She needed humans who understood that sometimes the best solution was not the most logical one, but the one that actually worked. The shuttle turned, its engines burning bright as it accelerated back toward the Grand Assembly Hall. Behind them, invisible but growing steadily, the Cascade Rift continued its inexorable expansion toward the heart of galactic civilization. High Chancellor Vorth stared at the tactical display with an expression that would have terrified his subordinates had they been present. The privacy shield around his office ensured he could show weakness without consequence, and right now that weakness was very real. 3 more systems had fallen to the rift in the past 12 hours. The casualty count had climbed past 20 billion. His communicator chimed. Quillix's voice emerged from the speaker with carefully neutral tones. "The human ambassador has accepted your invitation, High Chancellor." She will arrive with a specialist team in approximately 14 hours. Vorth's claws scraped against the display console. I did not authorize a team. She made it a condition of her assistance. I took the liberty of accepting on your behalf, given the circumstances. The Draknir Chancellor wanted to rage at the presumption, to remind this insected researcher of proper hierarchy and protocol. Instead, he looked at the growing void on his display and felt something he rarely experienced: fear. How many specialists? He asked instead. 3 plus the ambassador herself. Their credentials are being transmitted now. Vorth pulled up the files. Dr. Alan Foster, theoretical physicist with a reputation for unorthodox approaches. Commander Patricia Joe, disaster response coordinator who had managed evacuations during Earth's worst natural catastrophes. Leo Reeves, engineer specializing in improvised solutions under resource constraints. Their qualifications seemed laughably inadequate compared to the Concordat's finest minds. Very well, Vorth said after a long silence. They may observe, but make clear they are here to learn, not to interfere with our efforts. Of course, High Chancellor, Quillix paused, if I may speak candidly. You may. We are losing. Every approach we try fails. The Goreth brute force methods accomplish nothing. Our Tesh computational models cannot predict the rift's behavior. The Vorlani energy manipulation has no effect. Even the Luminar mathematical certainties have proven useless. Quillix's voice dropped lower. Perhaps beings who think differently, who lack our advantages and therefore developed alternative approaches, might see what we cannot. Vorth terminated the connection without responding. He knew Quillix was right. The Draknir had conquered 40 systems through military superiority, but you could not wage war against physics itself. His fleets were useless, his weapons meaningless. The emergency council session began 2 hours later. Representatives from all 7 dominant species gathered via holographic projection, their physical forms too scattered across evacuation efforts to meet in person. The viewing screens showed real-time updates on the rift's expansion. Another colony world, this one home to 12 billion Avrik, had 4 hours before the leading edge reached their atmosphere. The Cascade Rift continues to defy all containment efforts, the Luminar representative announced, its crystalline form refracting the emergency lighting into harsh angles. Probability calculations now show a 97% chance of total mission failure. We recommend immediate full-scale evacuation of all systems in the projected path. Evacuation where? Ambassador Selene of the Selkie asked, her form rippling with agitation in its containment tank. The rift expands in all directions. Eventually, it will consume everything unless we stop it. Then we must accept losses and save what we can, the Luminar stated coldly. The mathematics are clear. Commander Braunt's massive silicon form leaned forward. The Goreth do not abandon our people. We will continue deploying stabilization technology until we find a configuration that works. You have deployed 47 different configurations, the Vorlani elder interjected, its energy matrix pulsing with frustration. All have failed. Continuing the same approach while expecting different results is irrational. Then what do you suggest? Vorth demanded. We abandon reason entirely, consult mystics and hope for divine intervention. The chamber fell silent. Outside the metaphorical walls of their meeting, billions were dying. Ships fled in every direction, carrying refugees who had never known fear before. Civilizations millions of years old were being erased like dust in wind. Quillix, present only as an observer, activated his communication channel. Technically, he had no authority to speak during council sessions, but no one moved to silence him. The humans arrive in 10 hours, he said simply. Perhaps we should hear what they have to offer before dismissing all unconventional approaches. The humans. The Vorlani elder's colors shifted to shades Rachel's briefing materials would have identified as contempt. The species we rejected 3 days ago for lacking any notable capabilities. You expect them to solve what our greatest minds cannot. I expect nothing, Quillix replied. But I observe that every approach we have tried stems from our natural advantages. The Goreth use force because they are strong. We Tesh use computation because we are logical. The Vorlani manipulate energy because that is their nature. Perhaps beings without such advantages have learned different methods. Primitive methods born from weakness, the Avric spokesperson chittered. Perhaps, Quillix acknowledged. But our advanced methods have accomplished nothing except document our failure with greater precision. Vorth studied the tactical display again. The rift would reach the Grand Assembly Hall in 5 days now. The acceleration was increasing. At this rate, they might have 72 hours before evacuation became impossible. Let the humans present their observations, he said finally. We will evaluate their suggestions alongside all other proposals. You cannot be serious, the Luminar protested. They lack the foundational knowledge to even understand the problem, much less contribute to solutions. They understand survival, Selene said quietly, her telepathic voice touching each council member's mind directly. I have reviewed their history. They have faced extinction dozens of times. Asteroid impacts, climate shifts, supervolcano eruptions, plague, famine, war. Each time they adapted and survived. We have never faced true existential threat before. Perhaps that inexperience is our weakness, not theirs. The Vorlani elder pulsed with what might have been consideration. There is logic to that perspective. We have grown complacent. Our civilizations have existed for millions of years without significant challenge. Humans have been struggling for survival their entire existence. Struggling implies failure, the Avric noted. Struggling implies practice, Selene corrected. They have practiced survival, we have merely existed. Vorth made his decision. When the humans arrive, they will have full access to all data regarding the rift. They may propose whatever solutions they wish. We will evaluate those proposals with the same rigor we apply to our own efforts. And if their proposals are as primitive as their technology, the Luminar asked, then we will have lost nothing but time, which we are losing regardless, Vorth replied. This council is adjourned. All species will continue current evacuation and containment efforts. We reconvene when the human team is prepared to present. The holograms dissolved, leaving Vorth alone in the council chamber. Through the massive viewing ports, he could see the distant stars. Somewhere out there, the rift was consuming worlds. Somewhere closer, a small human shuttle was racing toward the assembly hall carrying 4 beings who represented a species the Concordat had mocked as weak and insignificant. Vorth pulled up Rachel Davis's file again, reading her parting words from 3 days ago. Perhaps you will come to regret underestimating us. At the time, he had found her warning amusing. Now those words seemed almost prophetic. The Draknir Chancellor had built his career on strength and certainty. He had conquered systems and bent entire civilizations to Concordat law. But strength meant nothing against an enemy that could not be fought, and certainty was a luxury he no longer possessed. For the first time in his long life, High Chancellor Vorth found himself hopping that weakness, adaptability, and emotional thinking might prove superior to all the advantages his species had always possessed. The alternative was annihilation, and even his pride could not withstand that reality. Rachel's team assembled in the research center deep within the Grand Assembly Hall, surrounded by technology that made Earth's most advanced laboratories look like primitive workshops. Dr. Alan Foster stood before a holographic display showing the Cascade Rift in stunning detail, his expression shifting between fascination and horror. Commander Patricia, Joe reviewed evacuation protocols with practiced efficiency, occasionally shaking her head at what she was reading. Leo Reeves examined the failed containment technologies with the focused intensity of someone solving a complex puzzle. Quillix had provided them with complete access to all Concordat data, petabytes of information collected over 4 days of desperate research. The sheer volume would have overwhelmed most researchers, but Rachel had chosen her team carefully. Each possessed the ability to see patterns others missed, to think around problems rather than through them. "This is remarkable," Alan said, gesturing at the rift visualization. "According to these readings, the phenomenon does not destroy matter. It erases it from spacetime entirely. The energy signatures suggest reality itself is being unwritten." "Can we stop it?" Rachel asked bluntly. "Using conventional physics, no. The test tried every theoretical framework known to galactic science. Nothing applies. It is like trying to explain color to a being that has never possessed vision. We lack the fundamental framework to even describe what is happening." Leo looked up from his examination of the Gorath stabilizers. "But we do not need to explain it. We need to redirect it." The room fell silent. Quillix, who had been observing quietly from one corner, tilted his head in a gesture Rachel had learned meant confusion. "Explain," Quillix said. Leo pulled up schematics of the various containment attempts. Every approach so far has tried to stop the rift or understand it. The Gorath wanted to build walls around it. The Tesh wanted to predict it mathematically. The Vorlani wanted to manipulate it like energy. But look at the expansion data. The rift does not move uniformly. He highlighted several sections of the recordings, showing how the rift's leading edge advanced at different rates across different regions of space. In some areas, it surged forward rapidly. In others, it seemed to hesitate or slow. "It is responding to something," Leo continued. "Not consciously, but like water flowing downhill, it follows paths of least resistance." Alan moved closer to the display, his eyes widening. "You are suggesting we treat it like a natural phenomenon rather than a scientific problem." "Exactly. On Earth, we cannot stop hurricanes or earthquakes, but we can predict their behavior by understanding patterns. We can redirect rivers by changing the landscape. We do not need to understand why the rift exists. We need to understand how it behaves." Patricia pulled up evacuation data alongside the rift expansion patterns. "He is right. Look at these sectors. The rift slowed near the Hellion Nebula region. It accelerated through the Kess binary system. There is variation in the data." Quillix approached the display, his compound eyes reflecting the dancing lights of the hologram. The Luminar examined those variations. They concluded the differences were within margins of measurement error. "The Luminar think in probabilities and mathematical certainties," Leo countered. "But nature does not care about mathematical elegance. Rivers do not flow in perfect curves. Weather patterns do not follow precise equations. They follow tendencies, preferences, paths shaped by countless small variables." Rachel felt hope stirring for the first time since learning of the crisis. "You think the rift has preferences, things that make it speed up or slow down?" "I think it interacts with the underlying fabric of spacetime in ways we can measure even if we cannot explain," Alan said, his theoretical physicist's mind racing ahead. "If we can map those interactions, we might be able to create a landscape that guides the rift away from populated systems." "Guide it where?" Quillix asked. "Anywhere that is not here," Patricia replied. "The galaxy is mostly empty space. If we can redirect the rift toward empty regions, it can expand harmlessly for millions of years before reaching anything inhabited." Quillix was silent for several seconds, processing the implications. "This is not a solution. This is postponement." "Postponement buys time for a real solution," Rachel said. "And more importantly, it saves the billions who will die if we do nothing." "The Council will want probability calculations," Quillix warned. "They will want certainty." "Then they will be disappointed," Alan said flatly. "This approach is based on pattern recognition and iterative testing. We make educated guesses, test them on small scales, adjust based on results, and implement what works. It is messy, uncertain, and completely unscientific by Concordat standards. But it is how humans solve impossible problems, Rachel added. We do not have perfect mathematics or overwhelming force or energy manipulation. We have observation, adaptation, and the willingness to try things that might not work. Leo was already sketching out a testing protocol. We need to deploy sensor probes near the rift's edge, not to measure what it is, but to measure how it responds to different stimuli. Energy frequencies, gravitational variations, electromagnetic pulses. We throw everything at it and see what makes it hesitate. That will require resources, Quillix noted. Ships, equipment, personnel willing to work near the rift. Then we need to convince the council, Rachel said. Can you arrange a presentation? They are expecting one. High Chancellor Vorth authorized your presence specifically to hear your proposals. Quillix paused. He will not be pleased with uncertainty and guesswork. Patricia smiled grimly. He was not pleased with certainty and calculation either, since those approaches failed completely. Sometimes you need to try something different, even if it feels wrong. Rachel gathered her team's preliminary findings into a coherent presentation. The approach was radical by Concordat standards, abandoning pure theory for practical experimentation. It meant accepting uncertainty and working with incomplete understanding. Every instinct the council possessed would rebel against this methodology. But those same instincts had already failed. The Draknir strength, the Tesh intelligence, the Vorlani power, the Gorath endurance, the Luminar precision, all proven inadequate against an enemy that refused to follow any rules they understood. How long until we can present to the council? Rachel asked. They await your convenience, Quillix replied. Vorth authorized full cooperation. Then we present now. Every hour we delay costs lives. Rachel looked at her team. We have one chance to convince them. These beings value certainty and logic. We are about to propose chaos and intuition. We are proposing survival, Alan corrected. The method does not matter if the result saves lives. They made their way to the council chamber, Rachel leading with her team following close behind. Quillix scurried alongside, providing last-minute insights into each council member's personality and likely objections. The massive doors opened, revealing the same semicircle of elevated seats where Rachel had been rejected days earlier. This time, she was not asking for membership. She was offering salvation, wrapped in methods these advanced beings would find disturbing and primitive. But she had learned something important during her first visit to this chamber. Pride was a luxury the council could no longer afford. Survival trumped dignity. And humanity, mocked for its weakness and simplicity, was about to teach the galaxy's most powerful civilizations that sometimes the most sophisticated solution was knowing when to abandon sophistication entirely. The presentation was about to begin, and Rachel could see in Vorth's eyes that he already knew what she would say. He would hate it. He would resist it. But ultimately, he would accept it, because the alternative was watching his civilization vanish into the void. The weak, primitive humans were about to become the galaxy's last hope. The council chamber held a tension that felt physical as Rachel activated the central display. 47 hours remained before the Cascade Rift reached the Grand Assembly Hall. Evacuation was underway, but millions would not escape in time. The holographic projection showed the rift's inexorable advance, a spreading darkness that had already claimed 32 billion lives. Honored council members, Rachel began, her voice steady despite the weight of countless lives resting on the next few minutes. My team has reviewed all Concordat research on the Cascade Rift. Your scientists have done exceptional work documenting the phenomenon's properties and behavior. However, documentation is not solution. High Chancellor Vorth leaned forward. We are aware our efforts have been insufficient. That is why you are here. What do you propose? Rachel gestured to Leo, who pulled up the expansion rate variations. The rift does not expand uniformly. There are measurable differences in advancement speed across different regions. Your scientists classified these as measurement errors because the variations do not fit any theoretical model. They are too small to be significant, the Luminar representative stated, its crystalline form refracting light in sharp, dismissive angles. Too small to explain theoretically, Alan countered, stepping forward, but large enough to measure consistently. In Earth science, we have a saying, when the data does not fit the theory, we trust the data. These variations mean something, even if we cannot explain why. Patricia activated a secondary display showing Earth's natural disaster response history. Humans have spent our entire existence dealing with forces we cannot control. Earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, wildfires. We cannot stop these phenomena. But we have learned to work around them by understanding their behavior patterns. You compare the Cascade Rift to weather. The Vorlani elder pulsed with shades Rachel now recognized as incredulity. I compare it to any force that follows patterns without consciousness, Patricia replied. The rift is not alive, not intelligent. It expands according to underlying principles. Those principles create the variations we observe. If we can identify what influences those variations, we can shape the rift's path. Leo pulled up his proposed testing protocol. We deploy a network of probes near the rift's leading edge. Each probe emits different frequencies, energy signatures, and gravitational fluctuations. We observe how the rift responds. When we find combinations that slow its advance, we deploy those at scale to create a path of resistance. When we find combinations that accelerate it, we deploy those to create a path of attraction. You want to guide it, Vorth said slowly, like steering water through channels. Exactly. We cannot stop the rift, but we might redirect it toward empty space where it can expand harmlessly. The Tesh representative chittered with agitation. This approach is entirely empirical. You have no theoretical framework, no mathematical proof it will work. We have no mathematical proof it will not work, Alan shot back. And we have 47 hours. Your theoretical approaches have failed. Perhaps it is time to try something that feels wrong but might actually succeed. Silence fell across the chamber. Rachel could see the council members processing this radical shift in methodology. Everything about it violated their instincts. The Concordat had built civilizations on certainty, on understanding, on proven methods refined over millions of years. Humans were asking them to abandon all that and trust in chaotic experimentation. Ambassador Selene of the Selkie rippled in her containment tank. What probability of success does your approach offer? Unknown, Rachel admitted. We will learn through testing. Initial success rates might be low, but each test provides data that improves the next attempt. We iterate until we find what works. And if you run out of time before finding a solution, the average spokesperson demanded. Then we fail, Patricia said bluntly, just as you are failing now, but at least we fail while trying something different. The Luminar's crystalline structure pulsed with calculations. I have modeled your approach using available data. Initial probability of success is approximately 12%. However, the model cannot account for adaptive adjustments based on test results. If your pattern recognition proves accurate, probability could increase to 38%. 38% is significantly higher than our current 0%, Quillix noted from his observer position. Commander Bront of the Gorath stood, his massive silicon form towering over the chamber. The Gorath will provide construction resources for probe deployment. Our ships can reach the rift's edge within 6 hours. The Tesh will contribute computational power for real-time data analysis, Quillix added, his compound eyes fixed on Rachel with something that might have been hope. The Vorlani elder pulsed with reluctant agreement. Our energy manipulation capabilities can generate the frequency variations your probes require. Slowly, grudgingly, each species committed resources. The Draknir military would coordinate logistics. The Selkie would maintain telepathic communication networks across the vast distances involved. The Avrik would transport personnel and equipment at speeds no human ship could match. The Luminar would process probability calculations in real time, updating success estimates as data accumulated. "This is unprecedented," Vorth said, his voice carrying a weight Rachel had not heard before. 7 species, each contributing their greatest strengths, coordinated by beings we rejected as inferior 3 days ago. "Not inferior," Rachel corrected gently. "Different. You have strengths we lack, but we have approaches you have never needed. Together we might accomplish what neither could alone." "Assuming your approach works," the Vorlani cautioned. "Yes," Alan agreed, "assuming it works, but assumption is all we have left. The choice is between trying something uncertain or accepting certain extinction." Vorth rose from his seat, his clawed hand striking the council platform in a gesture of decision. "The human proposal is approved. All species will contribute resources as discussed. Ambassador Davis, your team will coordinate the effort. We place our survival in your hands." The enormity of that statement settled over Rachel like a physical weight. Billions of lives depending on human intuition and improvisation. No pressure, she thought darkly. "We will need direct access to all species' technical teams," Leo said, already planning the implementation, "and authority to make rapid decisions without council approval." "Granted," Vorth said immediately. "Time is more valuable than protocol." The council adjourned, and species representatives scattered to mobilize their resources. Within hours, ships were converging on the rift's edge from across multiple systems. Goreth construction vessels carried probe frameworks. Tesh computational networks linked across light-years of space. Vorlani energy generators powered up to unprecedented output levels. Rachel stood at the coordination center, watching feeds from 100 different sources as the galaxy's most advanced civilizations worked together under human direction. Patricia managed the logistics with ruthless efficiency, routing resources where they were needed most. Alan coordinated with Tesh scientists, translating human intuition into testable hypotheses. Leo worked directly with Goreth engineers, improvising solutions to problems that emerged faster than anyone could plan for. The first probe launched 22 hours after council approval. It approached to within 1,000 kilometers of the rift's edge and began broadcasting test frequencies. Sensors recorded every variation in the rift's expansion rate. The rift consumed the probe within 8 minutes, but those 8 minutes provided data that shifted probability calculations from 12% to 15%. The second probe launched an hour later, incorporating lessons from the first. It lasted 11 minutes before being consumed. Probability increased to 17%. By the 30th probe, they had identified 3 frequency combinations that consistently slowed the rift's advance and 2 that accelerated it. Probability climbed to 29%. Vorth appeared at Rachel's shoulder, watching the feeds with an expression she could not read. "You are treating galactic annihilation as a learning process." "Because it is," Rachel replied without looking away from the displays. "Every failure teaches us something. Every success builds on previous knowledge. This is how humans have always worked. We try, we fail, we adjust, we try again. And if you run out of time before succeeding." Rachel finally turned to face him. "Then we fail knowing we tried everything possible. But we are not failing, High Chancellor. Look at your probability displays. We are succeeding, slowly and messily, but succeeding nonetheless." Vorth watched the numbers climb as another successful test completed. 32%, 35%. The rift was still advancing, still consuming worlds, but its path was beginning to shift. Fractionally at first, but measurably. I mocked your species, Vorth said quietly. I called you weak and insignificant. You were not wrong, Rachel replied. We are weak and insignificant compared to the Concordat, but we are also adaptable and persistent. Sometimes those qualities matter more than strength. The High Chancellor nodded slowly and returned to his command post. Around the coordination center, beings from 7 different species worked side by side, united by desperation and guided by humans who had never stopped asking the galaxy's most dangerous question. What if we try something different? 18 hours before the Cascade Rift would reach the Grand Assembly Hall, Leo Reeves made a discovery that changed everything. He had been analyzing the pattern of successful frequency combinations when his tired brain recognized something the advanced computational systems had missed. The combinations that slowed the rift were not random. They formed a harmonic sequence similar to natural resonances found in Earth's rivers and wind patterns. It is not just responding to frequencies, he said, pulling Rachel and Alan away from their coordination duties. It is flowing like a fluid through spacetime, and fluids can be channeled. Alan studied the data Leo had compiled, his eyes widening with each screen. If you are correct, we do not need to push the rift away from populated systems. We can create a current that pulls it toward empty space. Patricia joined them, her exhausted face showing the first hope she had felt in days. How fast can we implement this? We have the infrastructure already deployed, Leo said, gesturing at the network of generators and probes now surrounding the rift's perimeter. We just need to reconfigure them into a directional pattern instead of a containment pattern. Rachel pulled up the tactical display showing current evacuation status. The Grand Assembly Hall has 14 hours before mandatory evacuation. If we are going to attempt this, we need council approval now. They will want probability calculations, Alan warned. Then we give them probability calculations. Rachel activated the emergency council channel. Within minutes, holographic projections of all 7 species representatives appeared around her team's workstation. Vorth spoke first. You called an emergency session. Have you found a solution? We have found an approach with higher success probability, Rachel replied. But it requires reconfiguring all deployed resources immediately. We need authorization to proceed. The Luminar's crystalline form pulsed with rapid calculations. Reconfiguration will take time we do not have. Current containment efforts are showing measurable results. Why risk what is working? Because what is working is not enough, Leo interjected. Current efforts have slowed the rift's expansion by 11%. That buys us perhaps 6 additional hours. Our new approach could redirect the rift entirely, guiding it away from all inhabited systems permanently. Could, the Vorlani elder emphasized. Not will. You ask us to abandon certain partial success for uncertain complete success. Patricia stepped forward. With respect, partial success means billions still die. The rift is slowing but not stopping. Eventually, it reaches core worlds. Eventually, it consumes everything unless we redirect it completely. Quillix's antennae twitched as he processed incoming data. The human team's pattern recognition has proven accurate in 73% of test scenarios. Their success rate exceeds our initial theoretical models. 73% is not certainty, the Tesh representative noted. No, Rachel agreed. But in human history, we have learned that waiting for certainty often means waiting until it is too late to act. We have a window to try something that might save everyone. That window closes in hours. Ambassador Selene rippled in her tank. I sense great confidence from the human team. Not arrogance, but genuine belief in their approach. Their emotional certainty may be worth considering alongside mathematical probability. The Averick spokesperson chittered skeptically. Emotions are not data. Emotions are how humans process pattern recognition too complex for conscious analysis, Alan explained. Our brains identify connections our logical minds cannot articulate. When experienced humans feel confident about an approach, it often means they have recognized patterns at a subconscious level. Vorth studied Rachel with an intensity that made her feel exposed. "You truly believe this will work?" "I believe it has the best chance of working," Rachel replied honestly. "I believe the alternative is watching the rift consume the galaxy, and I believe that trying and failing is better than not trying at all." The High Chancellor looked at each council member in turn. "We authorized human coordination because our methods failed. Their methods have shown results we could not achieve. I propose we trust their judgment one final time." "If they are wrong, we lose everything," the Luminar stated flatly. "If we do nothing, we lose everything anyway," Commander Bront rumbled. "The Gorath vote to proceed." One by one, each species committed to the new approach. Some voted with confidence, others with resignation, but all voted to give humanity's plan a chance. The council adjourned, and Leo's team began the massive coordination effort. Ships across multiple systems received new instructions. Generators that had been configured for containment were reconfigured to create directional flow. The pattern Leo had identified required precise harmonic alignment across thousands of individual devices, each contributing to a larger resonance structure that would, theoretically, channel the rift like water through a canal. Patricia managed the logistics with practiced efficiency, but even she felt the pressure mounting as hours ticked away. The Grand Assembly Hall's evacuation was proceeding, but millions remained who could not leave in time. If the reconfiguration failed, those millions would die while watching humanity's last desperate attempt collapse. Alan worked with Tesh scientists to model the expected rift behavior, trying to predict how it would respond to the new configuration. The models were inconsistent, showing wildly different outcomes depending on variables that could not be precisely measured. In the end, he abandoned the simulations and trusted Leo's pattern recognition. The reconfiguration completed with 4 hours remaining before the rift would reach the assembly hall. Every generator, every probe, every harmonic emitter across a volume of space larger than Earth's entire solar system now resonated in a carefully choreographed pattern designed to create a current in spacetime itself. Rachel stood in the coordination center, surrounded by beings from 7 different species, all watching the same displays with the same desperate hope. Vorth stood beside her, his usual commanding presence replaced by something quieter and more vulnerable. "If this fails, I want you to know that I regret my earlier judgment," the High Chancellor said softly. "Your species proved more capable than I imagined possible." "If this fails, regret will not matter much," Rachel replied, "but I appreciate the sentiment." The countdown reached 0. Across thousands of light years, generators activated in perfect synchronization. The harmonic pattern pulsed through spacetime like a heartbeat, creating subtle variations in the fabric of reality itself. For 30 seconds, nothing visible changed. The rift continued its advance toward the assembly hall, seemingly unaffected by the massive effort surrounding it. Then Leo's sensors detected the shift. The rift's expansion rate was changing, not slowing uniformly but redirecting. Like water encountering a newly built channel, the leading edge began curving away from its previous trajectory. "It is working," Quillix breathed, his compound eyes reflecting the display's changing colors. "The probability calculations are increasing: 62%, 71%, 85%. The rift's path bent more sharply, following the harmonic current created by the coordinated generator network. Regions that had been directly in its path now fell outside the projected expansion zone. The assembly hall, which had faced imminent consumption, now sat just beyond the rift's new trajectory. But the rift was not stopping. It was accelerating along its new path, drawn toward empty space like water flowing downhill. The generators were not containing it. They were guiding it, feeding it a direction of least resistance that led away from all inhabited systems. Within 2 hours, the rift's path had stabilized. Projections showed it would expand harmlessly into intergalactic void for the next 10,000 years before reaching anything inhabited. Civilizations would have millennia to develop real solutions or evacuate threatened regions. The coordination center erupted in sounds that transcended species. Relief, joy, disbelief, all mixing together in a cacophony that somehow felt universal. Rachel felt Patricia grab her shoulder, Leo laughing with exhausted triumph, Alan wiping tears from his eyes while explaining the physics to fascinated Tesh researchers. Vorth turned to face Rachel directly. His scaled features arranged themselves into an expression she had never seen from a Drachnir: humility. "The Galactic Concordat owes humanity a debt that cannot be repaid," he said, his voice carrying through the celebration. "We mocked your weakness and dismissed your capabilities. We were blind to strengths we had never needed to develop." Rachel smiled tiredly. "You were not blind, High Chancellor. You simply measured us by your own standards. Every species here has incredible capabilities that humans lack, but we have our own abilities, developed through necessity and desperation. Together, we accomplished what none could alone." The council reconvened in formal session 6 hours later. The chamber that had rejected Earth's membership application now witnessed a unanimous vote to grant humanity full Concordat status with immediate effect. But more significantly, the Council established new protocols for crisis response, integrating human-style adaptive thinking with Concordat technological advantages. Quillix was appointed to lead a new joint research initiative studying human problem-solving methodologies. The Tesh researcher had been the first to recognize humanity's potential, and he would spend the next decades helping translate human intuition into frameworks other species could understand and utilize. Rachel stood before the council one final time, Earth's new status official and recognized. She thought about her parting words from days earlier, her warning that the council might regret underestimating humanity. She had been more right than she knew. "Ambassador Davis," Vorth said formally, "on behalf of the Galactic Concordat, I offer our gratitude and apology. We judged your species harshly and incorrectly. You have proven that strength comes in many forms and wisdom lies in recognizing value wherever it appears." "The Concordat does not need to apologize," Rachel replied. "You needed to learn a lesson that every species eventually faces. Sometimes the most advanced solution is knowing when to try something simple. Sometimes the strongest choice is admitting you need help. And sometimes the beings you consider weakest possess exactly the strengths you lack." She looked around the chamber at the various species representatives. "Humanity is honored to join the Concordat, but we join as partners who bring different perspectives, not as subordinates grateful for inclusion. We will contribute our adaptability and creative thinking. You will contribute your knowledge and capabilities. Together, we build something better than either could alone." The council members signaled agreement through their various methods. The vote was recorded. Earth was no longer a rejected applicant or a charity case. Humanity had earned its place among the stars by saving the very civilizations that had dismissed them. As Rachel left the chamber, she thought about the billions of humans back on Earth who would soon learn that their species had been accepted into the galactic community. They would celebrate Earth's new status and the opportunities it represented. But Rachel would remember something else. She would remember how the galaxy's most powerful civilizations learned that mockery often precedes regret, and that underestimating others is a weakness disguised as strength. The Concordat had learned that lesson instantly and thoroughly. They would not forget it again.